The text arrived while I was in the middle of a business meeting. I glanced down at my phone, a notification from Sarah's Instagram. A photo of her, Jenna and Taylor, cocktails in hand, tagged at the Monarch, the exclusive rooftop venue downtown. The caption read, "Annual girls trip planning session. Can't wait for Bali next month. Your best friend goals, squad goals, girls' night." I stared at my phone, my expression neutral, even as my stomach dropped. The annual girls trip that I'd been part of for the past 6 years. The trip I'd suggested we take to Bali when we were all together 3 months ago. The trip I'd already requested time off for, and there they were, planning it without me. I set my phone face down on the conference table and smiled at my clients as if nothing had happened. So, as I was saying about the investment portfolio diversification, my name is Eliza Harmon, and at 34, I just discovered that my so-called best friends had excluded me from our tradition without so much as a text message. But while they were probably feeling smug about their little coup, imagining me scrolling through social media with tears in my eyes, I was calmly closing a 7-figure deal with international investors. The signs had been there for months. The group chat that suddenly went quiet, the sorry we're booked excuses when I suggested getting together, the inside jokes on social media that I wasn't part of anymore. I'd been so busy with my finance career that I'd attributed it to our schedules not aligning. But the truth was much simpler. I'd been replaced. 3 months ago, I'd noticed Sarah becoming increasingly distant after I couldn't attend her boyfriend's birthday dinner because I was finalizing a major acquisition for my firm. "It's fine," she'd said with a tight smile that told me it absolutely wasn't. "We'll catch up soon." That same week, I'd overheard Jenna talking to Taylor at our monthly book club. I don't know why she even comes anymore. All she talks about is work. It's like she thinks she's better than us now. I'd paused outside the bathroom door, my hand frozen on the knob. Was that really how they saw me? As some kind of corporate snob who thought I was superior? The irony wasn't lost on me. My job in finance had funded our last 3 girls' trips, paid for birthday dinners they couldn't afford, and covered the deposits on vacation rentals when everyone else was a little short this month. I didn't confront them then. Instead, I'd made mental notes and started paying closer attention. I noticed how they'd schedule things when I had standing meetings, how they'd forget to include me in group texts, how they'd roll their eyes when I mentioned work, despite constantly asking for financial advice. My assistant, Maya, stepped into the conference room after my clients left. "Everything okay, Eliza?" "You seemed distracted toward the end." I handed her my phone with the Instagram post still open. "My best friends are planning our annual trip without me." Maya's eyes widened. "The trip you suggested? To Bali?" I nodded, gathering my papers. "The very one." "That's terrible. What are you going to do?" What was I going to do? I looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office. The city sprawled below me like a glittering chessboard. I'd always been good at strategy, at seeing 5 moves ahead. It was what made me successful in finance, what made me the youngest partner at my firm. "I'm going to finish reviewing these contracts," I said calmly. "And then I'm going to make a reservation at the Monarch for dinner tonight." "By yourself?" Maya looked concerned. I smiled. Sometimes the best company is your own. Music builds slightly. The Monarch was even more beautiful than the photos. Floor-to-ceiling windows, crystal chandeliers, and a rooftop deck with a view that made the city look like a fairy tale. I was seated at a corner table, a glass of champagne in front of me, when my phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. "Hey, stranger. We miss you. Coffee soon?" The false sincerity made my skin crawl. I took a sip of champagne and typed back, "At the Monarch tonight. Saw your Instagram post. Looks fun." 3 dots appeared immediately, disappearing and reappearing as she clearly struggled with how to respond. Finally, "Oh, total coincidence. That was just a preliminary planning meeting. Nothing set for Bali yet." I didn't respond. Instead, I signaled the waiter for another champagne and asked for the manager. Marcus Chen, the owner of the Monarch, was a slender man with impeccable taste in suits and a reputation for discretion. When he approached my table, Recognition flashed in his eyes. Ms. Harmon, what a pleasure to see you here. He extended his hand. Your firm handled my divorce settlement last year. Your financial advice was life-changing. I smiled, shaking his hand. I'm glad we could help, Marcus. I've been meaning to visit the Monarch for ages. It's even more beautiful than I imagined. Thank you. He gestured around proudly. Building this place was my dream. Though I must admit, running it has become complicated. My ex-wife's settlement demands have put me in a difficult position. Ah, there it was, the opening I'd been waiting for. I actually wanted to discuss business if you have a moment, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. I've been looking to diversify my investment portfolio. Real estate, specifically hospitality, has caught my interest. Marcus's eyebrows raised slightly. An interesting coincidence. I've been quietly considering taking on a partner or possibly selling outright. The divorce has been expensive. I nodded sympathetically while my mind raced through calculations. What would you consider a fair valuation for the Monarch? Marcus hesitated, then named a figure that would make most people balk. I simply nodded, taking another sip of my champagne. That seems reasonable considering the location and clientele, I replied, watching his expression shift from cautious to intrigued. I'd want to see the books, of course. Revenue projections, operating costs, staff overhead. Of course, yeah, Marcus said, leaning forward. When would you like to begin the process? How about tomorrow? I can have my team start the due diligence immediately. Marcus smiled, clearly impressed by my decisiveness. I'll have my accountant prepare everything. Ms. Harmon, may I ask what prompted this sudden interest in the Monarch? I gazed out at the twinkling city lights beyond the windows. Let's just say I've recently realized the importance of controlling your own spaces. By the time I left the Monarch that night, I had a verbal agreement, and Marcus's promise to have his lawyers draw preliminary paperwork. The price was steep, but fair and well within my means after years of careful investing and saving, while my friends lived paycheck to paycheck. I didn't tell anyone about my meeting with Marcus, not even Maya. Instead, I watched from a distance as my friends continued their charade. Sarah texted me about getting together soon. Jenna sent a group message about a movie night that was conveniently scheduled when she knew I had a work commitment. Taylor continued posting photos of their get-togethers with captions like, "Missing our girl at Eliza Harmon," that felt more like performance than genuine sentiment. The following week, I met with Marcus and his financial team. The numbers were even better than I'd anticipated. The Monarch wasn't just a status symbol. It was a genuinely profitable business with growth potential. As I reviewed the financial statements, I could see multiple opportunities for expansion. Private membership tiers, corporate event packages, celebrity chef collaborations. These numbers are impressive, I acknowledged, closing the folder. But I'd like to understand the day-to-day operations better. Would it be possible for me to shadow your management team for a few days? Marcus seemed surprised by the request. Most investors are content with the financial reports. I'm not most investors, I replied simply. I don't just write checks, Marcus. I build value. He studied me for a moment before nodding. I'll arrange it. And may I say, your approach is refreshing. For the next 5 days, I arrived at the Monarch early and left late, observing everything from inventory management to staff scheduling. I spoke with bartenders about their most popular cocktails, asked the chef about sourcing challenges, and watched the event coordinator navigate last-minute client requests. The staff was exceptional, professional, efficient, and genuinely passionate about creating memorable experiences. By the end of the week, I knew this wasn't just about getting back at my friends. The Monarch was a gem, and I wanted it to shine even brighter under my ownership. 2 weeks passed, filled with lawyers' meetings and due diligence reviews. The Monarch was even more profitable than I'd initially thought, with bookings solid for the next 6 months. Marcus was selling, not because the business was failing, but because he needed quick liquidity to satisfy his ex-wife's settlement demands. I was in the middle of signing the final paperwork when my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Big news! Just booked the Monarch for my birthday next month. Most exclusive venue in the city. VIP treatment. Can you make it or will you be working? The winky face emoji made my blood boil. The passive-aggressive dig about work was classic Sarah, making me out to be the villain for having a successful career while simultaneously benefiting from the perks that career afforded her. I took a deep breath and texted back, I'll check my calendar and let you know. Marcus looked up from the contract. Everything okay? I smiled, signing my name with a flourish on the final page. Everything is perfect. When does the ownership transition become official? My lawyers will file the papers tomorrow. You'll be the official owner by the end of next week. And the current reservations? All being honored, of course. The staff has been informed that new ownership is coming, but not who. I've kept that confidential as requested. I nodded, satisfied. Perfect. For the next 3 weeks, I went about my life as usual. I worked late, missed another of their spontaneous get-togethers, and listened to their increasingly transparent excuses about why Bali was looking complicated, and they were thinking about switching to a cruise instead. I didn't confront them. I didn't get angry. I didn't show any sign that I knew what they were doing. Instead, I learned everything I could about running the Monarch. I met with the staff, reviewed the books, and made plans for subtle improvements that wouldn't disrupt the venue's already successful formula. One evening, as I was reviewing menu updates with the head chef, I overheard two servers discussing Sarah's upcoming birthday party. The blonde one kept saying she was best friends with Marcus, one server said, rolling her eyes. Kept demanding special treatment because of it. Classic, the other server laughed. Remember when she insisted her party could stay 2 hours past closing because she's an influencer with 3,000 followers? I smiled to myself, making a mental note to review the staff's overtime pay for that night. If Sarah had indeed forced them to stay late, they deserved to be compensated properly. The next day, I called a staff meeting to introduce a new policy. From now on, any client who requires staff to stay beyond scheduled hours will be charged an automatic extended service fee, which will go directly to the affected employees. The announcement was met with enthusiastic approval. The staff didn't know I owned the Monarch yet, but already they were beginning to see the benefits of the change in management. Sarah's birthday was approaching, and my calendar alert reminded me that I hadn't RSVP'd to her exclusive party at the Monarch. I texted her, looking forward to your birthday celebration. I'll be there. Her response came quickly. Oh my God, yay! Didn't think you'd make it. It's going to be amazing. The owner is a personal friend. VIP treatment. I smiled at my phone. The owner was indeed a personal friend, just not the one she thought. The night of Sarah's birthday party arrived, and I took extra care getting ready. I chose a simple black dress that had cost more than most people's monthly rent, paired with the diamond earrings I'd bought myself after my last promotion. My makeup was flawless, my hair styled in soft waves. I looked successful, confident, and completely unaffected by their games. I arrived at the Monarch precisely 30 minutes after the party's start time, late enough to make an entrance, early enough not to miss anything important. The security guard at the door recognized me immediately. Good evening, Ms. Harmon, he said, stepping aside. Good evening, James. How's your daughter doing at college? He beamed. Loving it, ma'am. Thank you for asking. I smiled and walked into the venue, the sounds of laughter and music washing over me. The main room was decorated in Sarah's favorite colors, pink and gold. Champagne flowed freely, and a photo booth was set up in one corner with props and a backdrop featuring Sarah's face. Taylor spotted me first, her eyes widening slightly. Eliza, you made it! She air-kissed my cheeks. We were just saying we didn't think you'd come. Wouldn't miss it, I replied smoothly. Sarah's birthday at the Monarch? It's a special occasion. It is, she agreed, then leaned in conspiratorially. Jenna's husband knows the owner. Got us a crazy discount. This place is usually impossible to book. I suppressed a smile. Is that so? Jenna appeared beside us, slightly unsteady on her feet, champagne sloshing in her glass. Eliza, The workaholic emerges from her tower. She laughed too loudly. Come, Sarah's opening presents. I followed them to a VIP section where Sarah sat surrounded by gifts and admirers. She looked up as I approached, a flash of something, surprise, annoyance, crossing her face before she arranged her features into a bright smile. Eliza, you came. She stood, hugging me stiffly. I thought for sure you'd cancel. You know, work emergency or something. Nothing could keep me away, I said, handing her a small box wrapped in silver paper. Happy birthday, Sarah. She took the gift, her smile faltering slightly. You didn't have to get me anything. Of course I did. We're friends. She unwrapped the box to reveal a pair of simple gold earrings from a local designer she'd mentioned liking months ago. These are lovely. Thank you. I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She'd expected something more extravagant, something she could brag about or perhaps return for store credit. The earrings were beautiful but not expensive. A deliberate choice. I'm glad you like them, I said. I remembered you mentioning this designer at brunch last spring. Her eyes widened slightly. She clearly didn't remember the conversation. So thoughtful. The party continued, and I mingled comfortably, speaking with old friends and making new connections. I noticed Sarah, Jenna, and Taylor huddled together near the bar, shooting glances my way. Their body language screamed exclusion, but I didn't care. I was exactly where I wanted to be. As the night progressed, I observed how they interacted with the staff. Demanding, entitled, treating the servers like personal assistants rather than professionals. Each time I witnessed it, I made another mental note. Each dismissive wave, each snapped finger, each exasperated sigh when a request wasn't fulfilled, immediately only strengthened my resolve. These women, who had once been my closest friends, now seemed like strangers to me. Had they always been this way? Or had success changed them? Not mine, but their perception of it. Around midnight, when the party was in full swing, Marcus made his promised appearance. He greeted Sarah warmly, played the role of generous host, and then made his way to where I stood watching the crowd. Everything to your satisfaction, Ms. Harmon? He asked quietly. Perfect, Marcus. Thank you for handling the transition so smoothly. My pleasure. The paperwork will be ready Monday. After that, the monarch is officially yours. I nodded, taking a sip of champagne. I appreciate your discretion. Of course. He glanced at Sarah, who was watching us with naked curiosity. Your friend seems interested in our conversation. She's not my friend, I replied calmly. She's my test case. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Test case? For what happens when people underestimate me? He laughed softly. Remind me never to cross you, Ms. Harmon. Call me Eliza. And don't worry, I save my revenge for those who truly deserve it. As Marcus walked away, Sarah immediately approached, her smile wide and artificial. You know Marcus? Isn't he amazing? He's giving us the VIP treatment tonight. I smiled. Yes, Marcus and I are well acquainted. From work? She asked, fishing for information. You could say that. I took another sip of champagne. This is a beautiful venue. You must be thrilled to have booked it for your birthday. It was impossible, she boasted. They're booked solid for months, but Jenna's husband knows Marcus, so... She shrugged as if to say, that's the power of connections. I nodded thoughtfully. Connections are important. Speaking of which, has everyone confirmed for Bali? I was thinking we could upgrade to a private villa, my treat. Sarah's smile froze. Oh, about Bali ... She glanced around as if hoping for rescue. We're actually thinking of doing a cruise instead. More inclusive, you know? And Jenna gets seasick, so a cruise makes more sense than a villa by the ocean. The lie was so transparent I almost laughed. Jenna had been a competitive swimmer in college and had never once mentioned seasickness during our previous beach vacations. A cruise? That sounds lovely. When were you planning to tell me about the change? Her cheeks flushed. Soon. We just We weren't sure about your schedule with work and everything. You're so busy these days. I'm never too busy for traditions with friends, I said, my voice gentle but firm. The annual trip means a lot to me. Guilt flashed across her face. Of course. We'll talk about it soon, I promise. I nodded, knowing the conversation was over. Enjoy your party, Sarah. It's certainly memorable. As I moved away from her, I felt a strange mix of sadness and resolve. These women had been part of my life for over a decade. We'd celebrated promotions and breakups, birthdays and bereavements. We'd held each other through failures and championed each other's successes. Or so I'd thought. The reality I was beginning to understand was that they'd championed my success only when it benefited them. Only when my financial stability meant free drinks, subsidized vacations, and bailouts when rent was tight. But tonight wasn't about mourning lost friendships. It was about reclaiming my power and my dignity. Monday morning came, and with it, the final paperwork, making me the official owner of the Monarch. I signed the documents in my office, with Maya as my witness. I still can't believe you bought a venue, she said, shaking her head in amazement. And they have no idea? None. I handed her the file of signed documents. And I'd like to keep it that way for now. For how long? I smiled. Until the moment is right. That moment came sooner than expected. 3 days later, I received a group text from Sarah. Ladies, exciting news. I've booked the Monarch again for our pre-Bali party next month. The owner loved us and gave us another discount. Eliza, I know you're probably busy with work, but we'd love to have you there if you can make it. I stared at the text, noting the performative inclusion, the subtle dig about work, and most importantly, the complete lie about booking the Monarch again. No such reservation had been made. No discount had been offered. I checked the venue's calendar, which now came directly to my email. Not only was there no booking under Sarah's name, but the date she mentioned was already reserved for a charity fundraiser, an event I had personally approved just yesterday. I replied simply, wouldn't miss it. Then I called Marcus. Would you like to join me for dinner at the Monarch tomorrow night? I think it's time to introduce myself to the staff as the new owner. The next evening, I arrived at the Monarch early. The staff had been gathered, and Marcus introduced me as the new owner. I spoke briefly about my vision for the venue, my commitment to maintaining its excellence, and my appreciation for their hard work. I believe in transparency and fairness, I told them. Many of you have already shared your ideas with me during my observation period, though you didn't know who I was then. Those ideas haven't been forgotten. In fact, they're being incorporated into our plans moving forward. I announced several immediate changes: improved health benefits, a profit-sharing program, and the extended service fee policy I'd already implemented. The room buzzed with surprised approval. Ms. Harmon, one of the bartenders, spoke up. What about the VIP list? Mr. Chen had certain clients who received preferential treatment. I smiled. The only VIPs at the Monarch will be those who treat our staff with respect and courtesy. Influence isn't measured by social media followers or who you claim to know. It's demonstrated through actions. After they returned to their duties, Marcus and I sat down to dinner. They seemed to take the news well, he observed. Change is always challenging, but I don't plan to make drastic alterations. The Monarch is successful because of its staff and reputation. I just want to build on that foundation. And what about your friends? He asked, cutting into his steak. When will they learn about the new ownership? I smiled. Soon. Very soon. The next morning, I received a frantic call from Sarah. Eliza, thank God you answered. I need your help. What's wrong? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. It's the Monarch. Marcus just called me and said there's been a change in ownership and they're reviewing all upcoming events. He said my pre-Bali party might be canceled. Can you believe that? After he promised us special treatment? I made a sympathetic noise. That's terrible. What can I do to help? You work in finance. You must know people, investors. Maybe you can find out who bought it and talk to them. Please, Eliza, this is important to me. The desperation in her voice was real. Not because she cared about me being included, but because she cared about losing her perceived status as someone with exclusive access to the monarch. I'll see what I can do, I promised. Let me make some calls. I hung up and immediately texted Jenna and Taylor. Sarah just called about the monarch situation. Meeting there at 7 tonight to sort it out. Can you both make it? They responded quickly, confirming they would be there. I smiled, setting my phone down, and returned to reviewing the new menu options my chef had proposed for the monarch. Throughout the day, my phone buzzed with increasingly desperate messages from Sarah. Any news? Did you find out who bought it? Please tell me you have connections. I responded minimally, letting her anxiety build. By late afternoon, she texted that she'd booked a backup venue, some new place called the Basement Bar on 3rd Street, but really hoped I could save the monarch booking. Still working on it, I texted back. See you at 7. That evening, I arrived at the monarch precisely at 7. The staff greeted me warmly, and I was escorted to the private dining room I'd reserved for the meeting. I wore a different black dress, equally expensive but more commanding, paired with my grandmother's pearls and the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. I'd arranged for the chef to prepare a special tasting menu and for the sommelier to select wine pairings. The table was set beautifully with fresh flowers and handwritten place cards. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a statement. Sarah, Jenna, and Taylor arrived together, their expressions a mix of anxiety and annoyance. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw me already seated at the head of the table. You're early, she said, clearly surprised. I'm always punctual for important meetings, I replied, gesturing for them to sit. Please join me. They exchanged glances before sitting down. A waiter appeared immediately with champagne. Should we wait for the new owner? Taylor asked, looking around nervously. The owner is already here, I said calmly. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me in confusion. Did you arrange this meeting? Do you know them? Sarah leaned forward eagerly. I took a sip of champagne, savoring the moment. I don't just know the owner, I am the owner. The silence that followed was deafening. Their faces cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally the dawning realization that I was serious. What? Sarah managed finally. You bought the monarch? When? How? 3 weeks ago, I replied. Right after I saw your Instagram post planning my trip without me. Right after you started excluding me from gatherings. Right after you decided our decade of friendship wasn't worth basic honesty. That's crazy, Jenna sputtered. You bought an entire venue because of an Instagram post? I smiled. I made a sound business investment in a profitable establishment that happens to be where you chose to celebrate your exclusion of me. We weren't excluding you, Taylor protested weakly. You're always working, always canceling, always talking about your career. And yet I never forgot your birthdays, I said quietly. I never planned our annual trip without you. I never lied to your faces about cruise ships or seasickness. Sarah's face flushed. We were going to tell you. When? After you'd gone? After you'd posted the photos? No one spoke. The truth hung in the air between us, impossible to deny. You know what the saddest part is? I continued. I would have understood if you'd just been honest. If you'd said you wanted different things, that our friendship had run its course. Instead, you lied. You excluded. You played childish games while asking for financial advice and birthday gifts and job referrals. So this is what... Sarah gestured around. Some kind of revenge? I shook my head. This is a business decision. The monarch is a sound investment with excellent returns. The fact that you happen to choose it as the venue for your lies is merely poetic justice. And what now? Jenna asked, her voice small. You're going to ban us from your fancy venue? I studied her for a moment. The monarch welcomes all guests who treat our establishment and our staff with respect. Based on my observations and the feedback I've received, that's not a category you fall into. Taylor scoffed. What are you talking about? We're great customers. Are you? I raised an eyebrow. Snapping fingers to get attention? Making servers stay hours past closing? Demanding special treatment based on fictional connections? I shook my head. That's not being a great customer, that's being entitled. Sarah's expression hardened. So you bought this place just to humiliate us? No, I replied calmly. I bought it because it's a good investment and because I wanted to create something meaningful. Exposing your lies is merely a side benefit. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Your reservation for next month's pre-Bali party is canceled. In fact, all your future reservations at the Monarch are canceled. I have instructed the staff accordingly. You can't do that, Jenna protested. That's discrimination. I laughed softly. It's a private establishment exercising its right to refuse service. But don't worry, I've already arranged alternative venues for you. The reservations are in your names at the basement bar on 3rd Street. It's not quite the Monarch, but it fits your budgets and your characters much better. Their faces paled as the reality of the situation sank in. As for Bali, I continued, I've canceled my time off request. I'll be too busy running my new business to join you, not that I was ever truly invited. I picked up my purse and nodded to the waiter who had been standing discreetly in the corner. Please see my guests out, Antonio. Their time at the Monarch has come to an end. Taylor stood first, her face tight with anger. You've changed, Eliza. Success has made you cold. I met her gaze steadily. No, Taylor. Success has made me honest. And clearly that's something you can't handle. I watched from the window as they exited the building, huddled together in confusion and anger. They paused on the sidewalk, looking back at the gleaming facade of the Monarch, the venue they'd used to exclude me, the venue I now owned. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. How did it go? I typed back, exactly as planned. The truth was, buying the Monarch had never been about revenge. It had been about reclaiming my power, about refusing to be diminished by people who claimed to care about me while systematically excluding me. It had been a business decision, yes, but also a declaration. I would not be made small by small people. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into running the Monarch. I expanded the menu, renovated the rooftop garden, and started a program that offered the venue at reduced rates to local charities for fundraising events. Business thrived, and so did I. I hired a new event coordinator, a brilliant young woman who'd been assistant manager at another venue, but had been repeatedly passed over for promotion. Under her guidance, the Monarch's calendar was soon booked solid 6 months in advance. I also implemented a mentorship program, partnering with the local community college to offer internships in hospitality management. The first cohort included students from backgrounds typically underrepresented in luxury hospitality, giving them access to opportunities they might otherwise never have had. The Monarch was becoming more than just a venue. It was becoming a community, a place where excellence and respect went hand in hand. Sarah tried calling once, leaving a voicemail full of half apologies and excuses. Jenna sent a text suggesting we clear the air. Taylor emailed about repairing our friendship. I didn't respond to any of them. Some bridges once burned aren't worth rebuilding. Instead, I focused on building new connections, genuine ones based on mutual respect rather than convenience or status. I joined a women's business leadership group where I met entrepreneurs who understood the delicate balance of ambition and authenticity. I reconnected with old college friends who'd always supported my drive and determination. 6 months later, the Monarch was featured in a national magazine as one of the top event venues in the country. The article included a photo of me on the rooftop garden, the city skyline behind me, success evident in every line of my posture. The day the magazine was published, I received a text from Sarah. Saw your article. Congratulations. I guess we underestimated you. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing my response. Most people do. Only once. I didn't wait for her reply. Instead, I put my phone away and walked through the Monarch, greeting staff by name, making notes about a new lighting installation, and pausing to admire the view from the rooftop. My view now, earned through hard work and self-respect. A year to the day after I'd seen that fateful Instagram post, I hosted my own celebration at the Monarch. Not a revenge party, but a genuine celebration of what the venue had become under my stewardship. I invited clients, colleagues, new friends, and the entire staff and their families. As I stood preparing to give a toast, I looked around at the faces surrounding me. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. People who celebrated my success because they understood the work that went into it. People who showed up not because of what they could gain, but because they genuinely wanted to be there. A year ago, I began raising my glass. I made what seemed like an impulsive decision. But sometimes what looks like impulse is actually clarity. The monarch has taught me that success isn't measured by who you impress or what you acquire. It's measured by the community you build and the values you uphold. The room filled with applause and genuine smiles. As I looked at the faces around me, Maya beaming proudly, Marcus nodding in approval, staff members who had become friends, I realized that I hadn't just bought a venue. I'd created a home. They hadn't invited me to the party, so I bought the venue. And in doing so, I'd thrown myself the most important celebration of all: freedom from people who couldn't see my worth.